Alright, let's play YUBEL. And with that being said, welcome back to YUBEL Battlegrounds. It's literally just a format where I play YUBEL. I'm creative, I know. But I want to hijack that episode to talk a little bit about non-engine. What is exactly better, hand traps or boardbreaker? And I do believe it's weird and a little bit difficult to give an exact answer to that, but I've played a lot with hand traps, exactly that version you see on the screen. Even in the gameplay I will show later, I played exactly that version. But I also tested with boardbreaker, and I have to say, hand traps still feel very lackluster. I mean, yeah, okay, against Snake Eyes, hand traps are now a lot better than before, since they basically lost Fiendsmith Engraver as engine enabler, they lost 2 Snake Eyes Ash and 1 or 2 Poplar. Alright, but there is a problem with that exact logic. Snake Eyes isn't the only deck on the planet. Crazy, right? I know. But on a serious note, Tenpai is still quite capable and YUBEL is probably the best deck, and you will see a rise of YUBEL players now. I guarantee you that. And hand traps against YUBEL are worse than hand traps against Snake Eyes pre-ban list. It's that bad. I know a lot of people will try to tell you that impermanence on Beckoning Beast or the normal summon is really bad, but I don't get how exactly. We literally have a lot of cards that combat exactly that. An impermanence on the normal summon. For example, Tracked, the field spell, sometimes even Opening and Nightmare Pain. Like, if your start hand dies to 1 impermanence, any other hand trap would have done the same. And I mean, yeah, it can happen, like with every deck it can happen that, for example, you draw double imperm, 1 Ash and 1 Bestial and only 1 Beckoning Beast. In that case, yes, 1 hand trap is very devastating. Besides that, the deck is highly consistent and it works fine. I literally never bricked, and we just have to think about hand traps or boardbreaker. In my opinion, currently boardbreaker are a lot better. The problem with that is one single card releasing in the next core set. Minimax C. If that card releases, it will be so oppressing that we all will have to main deck 3 Ash Blossoms, 3 Crossouts, and 1 Called by the Grave. And if this will happen, which I do believe it will, since that Minimax C is just broken, boardbreaker will become a lot worse, since we just can't fit as many anymore. And that exactly is my concern. So yeah, right now boardbreaker are better, but that will change rather quickly with Rage of the Abyss, and then we need to reconsider a lot of things. The side deck was incorrect, by the way. I do believe I played that side deck, and Chaos Angel, I always side out going second the Rabbit, and instead of the Rabbit, Chaos Angel comes in. I do believe that a lot of people are somewhat afraid of siding extra deck cards, which I don't get. I will tell you that right now. Siding extra deck cards is crazy. Chaos Angel for going second and Gustav next because it's my favorite machine monster. In that first episode post ban list, the replays I'm going to show you aren't exactly the best gameplay showcases you have ever seen, but I still do believe it's entertaining, some stuff that happens, and especially I make some mistakes, my opponent makes some mistakes, we can learn from it. And it showcases how resilient, and I mean that, resilient, that deck is against boardbreaker. My Tenpai opponent had everything, and he still lost. With all that being said, let's jump in. Alright, game 1 against White Forest, and just for your information, I lost the die roll, so he was going first, and look what happens. He proceeds to the end phase, and you may think now, alright, easy win, but it's not as simple as you may think. In the current meta, if someone passes on an empty field, it can mean 2 things. Either their deck building is complete garbage and they should play casual instead of ranked, or they have like 4 hand traps. And my hand, if you look at it, it isn't exactly the best to play through multiple interruptions. So what do I do in that scenario? So I knew from that I won't be able to accomplish a good end board, so I tried to bait out as much as possible. And if you start with Tracked, I can't explain why almost everyone tries to stop Tracked, and I don't know why. Probably because they think, okay, if you have to start with Tracked, your hand is probably very bad, but that is not the case. I know Drawn and Lockbird basically does nothing besides hand looping himself, since my hand, I can do the Fiendsmith combo anyways, so I had no fear at all to just start with Tracked, since normal summoning Lurie basically accomplishes the same endboard as one Trucked can do. I realized, okay, I can't win this turn anyways, I have to take as many cards out of his hand as possible so I can try to push for game in the following turns. I know that with my 3 hand traps, he will not be able to play anyways, even if he draws playable. Since I don't have to care about Ash anymore, I go into Requiem to activate its effect to get Engraver to the field, and now I activate Requiem to go into Necroquip Princess, and then I just reborn the Engraver. What do I do now? I was 100% sure he has an impermanence in his hand. My gut feeling told me that, and I want to put out as much damage as possible right now. What do I do? Simple, I will just go into the battle phase, since I know, okay, if he has an impermanence, he will just negate the next link play I will make, and then I won't have as much damage on the field as I have right now. So I go into the battle phase, I push for a lot of damage, and then I link into the rabbit, which of course he will negate. And the whole turn basically played out how I predicted it would turn out, and I was happy in my situation, since I know if the rabbit would resolve, I wouldn't be able to play any further, but I wouldn't need to, because then I would have Azarune in combination with 3 hand traps, and even a hand with a lot of gas won't be able to play through that. But if he negates the rabbit, I still have in the next turn, in his turn, the protection the rabbit has, since it's an illusion monster, against battle, which means I have a lot more protection for my life points and a possible protection for the link monster itself to have link plays in the following turn. It wouldn't have made any sense to go into Yama or even, I don't know, Sequence, since I knew he had Imperm in hand, and then I just take the risk that he can somehow play and SP banish them. So the rabbit was the most secure option in that case, and yeah, with my 3 hand traps I feel comfortable. Now I passed turn and I knew, okay, he can't do anything, and I do believe he bricked completely and he realized that, so yeah. Game 2. I do not have game 2 anymore, I don't know where it is, maybe I deleted it by accident, but I know that the White Forest player won. He basically put up a god board I couldn't break, and yeah, he just won by going through combo and I couldn't break it. So yeah, game 3, and I of course go first, and I know my hand seems pretty weird, but it's actually quite good. A lot of people don't realize that for some reason, but Fiendsmith Tract is a great one-cut combo. That card alone puts up a good board, and it plays a lot better into Drawn and Lockbird, since you then can immediately grab Lurry to have access to the Fiendsmith combo. If you start with Fiendsmith Engraver, you have to first grab Tract, and then if you get Drawled, you of course can't activate Tract. So I felt very comfortable to start with Tract in that case, and I told you, for some reason they always want to stop Tract if you start with that. That is insane. I'm not saying it's incorrect necessarily to do that, especially against YUBEL, who puts out the danger that a Phantom of YUBEL can just pop out of nowhere, but it's just something I noticed. So he ashed Tract, and I was completely fine with that, since now my road is open for Nightmare Throne, and I grabbed Samsara de Lotus. Why did I play into Drawn and Lockbird instead of just destroying Spirit of YUBEL to get the OG YUBEL to the field and then have fodder or material for Phantom of YUBEL? That is simply answered. Both plays would have been fine actually, and I do believe I strongly thought about destroying Spirit, but since I already have Squirmer in hand and with the rabbit in mind, which plays wonderfully through Drawl, I knew if he drawls me he just hand loops himself, he then will only have 4 cards to combat my endboard, and my endboard would have been pretty strong through Drawl, and that's why I took the risk to play into Drawl, because I just didn't care. And I knew he already used Ash for my Tract, so my Lotus can't get ashed, but he can use cards like Veiler or Imperm, and that is solely the reason why Squirmer is insanely good in almost every scenario. Because now I can just special Squirmer, go into Yama, since I wanted to grab Shavara to basically force him to use another target negation, another Veiler on the Yama, because if he wouldn't use it on Yama, I would have Shavara to dodge it on the most important target, Spirit. I know he could have used the Veiler on the Reborn of Lotus, but that wouldn't be that bad since I play Muckraker, and with Muckraker I could have just reborn the Lotus again, so I would have played around like 4 hand traps. That's insane. But Fate had something different for me in store. He sadly had the best card he could have had in that scenario. Bestial Drew Swarm. And that was very bad for me, since now I don't have any extender. He already used Ash and Veiler to stop me from extending at all. And now I'm in a bad situation. I have Shavara, I have nothing to pop except Yama, which wouldn't do anything. It would basically put me in the same situation but worse. But I knew, I had Ash, and I knew that White Forest, they basically don't have any one-card combo. They have a lot of two-card combinations, so I just prayed for him to not have a God hand, and for my Ash to save me. But I also had a plan with Yama. So I passed my turn because I literally had no other choice, and he started by normal summoning Sylvie, which is a good card for him. Depending on what he has in hand, it's everything. It's basically full combo, but I knew that what he searches is an extender, because I played White Forest myself a little bit, so I knew that. And I didn't want to take the risk to Ash that, and he has already an extender in hand, because then I would lose instantly. So he searches, I don't know what that card is even, he searches Beware the White Forest. I don't know why he did that. Like, wouldn't it be better to search the other one that searches? I do think he misplayed here, because he didn't expected me to have an Ash Blossom, I don't know. But I do believe if he would have searched the other one, he could have done a lot more. But maybe not. Maybe that was right to search that, because now he activates a good card. Oh, that was fast. He activated LZ. And LZ is crazy. I love that card so much. That artwork is completely cool. And he pitched the Beware since he can just set it. And he already normal summoned Sylvie. So if he would have that card that searches, he could have used it, yes. But what would he search? He can't normal summon anymore, and they only have an extender that basically doesn't do anything besides LZ that don't take the normal summon. So maybe he knew that, so that's the reason why he didn't search the other one. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. And now he has, sadly, because Sylvie is a tuner and a light tuner on top of that, he has access to Chaos Angel to banish my throne, and Drew Swarm will target the Yama, and I already predicted that, so I used Shavara on the Yama to dodge that send off to have protection. And if he decides to take my Shavara away from me, which was a good decision since it would basically enable me to go immediately with just any other monster or normal summon into Closed Heaven, if he decides to do that, I can use Yama to reborn the Lotus. So I do believe that was my best possibility to do here in that scenario. And that is exactly what I did. I used Shavara to set Chamber and then Yama to reborn the Lotus. But in hindsight, maybe it wasn't correct from him to just go into push into Shavara. But I don't know. I do think there wasn't a correct choice for him. He was just in a bad position. And I felt pretty comfortable, but there was one problem. My top deck needs to be good, because if otherwise, that is good, but it won't solve my problem. The problem I had is, one Ash Blossom, if I start with Lotus, cooks me completely. And I do not have any Fiend monster in my graveyard to go into Phantom with the Spirit, and Lotus is of course on the field. So what do I do now? Simple, I just used the Chamber to reborn the Shavara to then link into Closed Heaven. And I did that to play around basically almost everything. I don't need Lotus to resolve to get access to my YUBEL engine, because of course I thank the TCG every day for that, we have Aerial Eater, our bear trees. So it's completely fine to basically fuse away the YUBEL engine I have currently to have protection for my whole combo. But turns out he basically doesn't have anything. I know the set card that isn't imperm, so he only could have another hand trap that is a monster, and I have Phantom for that, so I knew I won. But how do I win if that Chaos Angel is unaffected and I can't remove it, I can't destroy it by battle? What do I do? A lot of people, if they play the Fiendsmith heavy variant of YUBEL, forget that you still do play YUBEL. It's still a YUBEL deck. And if you look at the stats Chaos Angel has, you realize quickly what my plan is, and I basically did exactly that. And yes, you do not need Terror Incarnate to put out a lot of YUBEL monster to crash for game. You don't need that at all. Like, I don't play Terror Incarnate, you know that, and I never missed it. I literally never missed it. And yeah, that's exactly what I did. I put out 3 YUBELs and proceeded to the battle phase, and that's what won me the game. Next game against Tenpai, and he was letting me go first, so I immediately knew it's Tenpai. And I was pretty hyped to test the new version post-Banlist against Tenpai post-Banlist, and I basically just proceeded with my whole full combo, like the full god combo that even draws me one card with Necrokill Princess. You saw that combo in the last video if you watched it, and I did exactly that. And let me tell you, that Tenpai player, he didn't brick at all. He had a lot of gas, a lot of board breaker, but he just couldn't break the end board at all, and I do believe that is a crazy dynamic. Azarun is an inherent summon negate, and the Tenpai dragons, the battle phase effect is actually an inherent summon. Why is that? I will talk about it once I see the first Tenpai dragon on the field so I can show you, but the rabbit isn't even that bad against Tenpai, since if they activate the field spell, you can just use Azarun to special summon itself, and then the rabbit can pop the field spell. So the rabbit and Azarun, it's actually quite the good package against Tenpai. So I'm finished with my 2-card combo. I just had to use Squirmer to go into Varudres, and that end bot is crazy, like crazy. He didn't break and he used Lightning Storm, and I wanted to keep my back row because I wanted to just keep the Azarun. I do think that's a great card, and one important thing to know is that if they clear the back row, Desiree will lose its negate. So I just used Varudres since I wanted to save Desiree if he has Droplet or something. And on the Varudres he chained Zangen Kaimen, which I of course used Ash on. And then he used Droplet, sending basically almost everything to the graveyard, so I can't respond. It's very weird for Tenpai to use Zangen Kaimen outside the battle phase, but I do believe he wanted to bait my Desiree so he can use Droplet on everything. That would have won him the game, definitely. I wouldn't even have used the Desiree on the Zangen Kaimen, even if I wouldn't have had the Ash in hand. Since I know, okay, with my bot on the field, I don't lose to the Zangen Kaimen anyway, my only lose condition right now in that moment was Droplet, so I had to save Desiree for exactly that. So everything turned out as I wanted it to turn out, but then he used Triple Tactics Thrust to search Raigeki, which told me, okay, he has a 1-card combo in hand. And yes, Raigeki will be able to clear everything, and after Raigeki resolves I won't have any monsters on the field, but it wasn't really that bad for me. I mean, I still do have Spirit in my hand and Azarun, which won't be destroyed by Raigeki since it's not activated yet, so I'm in a good position. He used Raigeki clearing everything. I use the Rage to grab Samsara the Lotus to basically just have follow-up, and on top of everything I still have Spirit of Yubel, I have Azarun to stop him from playing at all in the battle phase. I know I won the game. But why can Azarun stop the Tenpais in the battle phase when it's an effect that summons the Synchro monster? Let me explain, but first he used Gold Sarcophagus to banish the Blaster, to then grab the Pydra, which is really weird. I do believe he forgot that he activated Zangen Kaimen, but it wouldn't have mattered even if he grabbed the right one, since Azarun alone stops the 1-card combo completely. So yeah, there was no out to my endboard at all, like he couldn't break it, and look at what he had. He had Raigeki, Thrust, Droplet and Lightning Storm. That shit is crazy. So he uses Pydra to grab the Zangen Kaimen, and then he proceeds to the battle phase. Now to the topic of Azarun. Let's just read Pydra, because it reads blah 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 blah. Once per turn during the battle phase you can, quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control. And because it performs the synchro summon after this effect resolves, it's just what it states on the card, you can actually stop the summons with inherent summon negates. It's basically the same way you can stop IP with Azarun. But keep in mind, you can't use that on the effect, you have to use that on the summon, which is actually a lot better. And Azarun also has 1800 defense, so no Pydra, no Chundra, no Fadra can run over it. I'm telling you, Azarun is just crazy against Tenpai, but then he just tries to attack, I use Spirit and he scoops. Let's go to game 2. Okay, he let me go first, and I was very surprised by this, since I believe that the YUBEL endboard, like you saw, is unbreakable for Tenpai, so I don't know why he didn't just try to Koikimero me. It is what it is. But of course I sided out a lot of cards. I sided out the Azarun, I sided out the Chamber to reborn the Rage, so it wasn't the worst position for him to be in, but I knew I could put out a bot to the field that is very strong and annoying for Tenpai to deal with, especially in combination with Imperm and Ash Blossom, and I tried exactly that. I mean, there isn't much to overextend here. I don't have access to the Rabbit sadly, like I mentioned, because I always sided out for the Chaos Angel. I just performed the normal Fiendsmith combo in combination with my YUBEL engine, and he has Nibiru, which is very interesting. I do believe I never saw Tenpai running Nibiru, especially against YUBEL, very interesting, but anyways, Chain Phantom, Spirit effect to get the OG YUBEL back to the field. And that kinda helped me, since I thought about going into Varudres, but I ultimately decided to not go into Varudres. While Varudres is very good against Tenpai, my hand wasn't really that great. I mean, you saw it. If he had one Ash Blossom or any other hand trap, I basically would pass on Phantom and double hand traps pass, which sometimes even is enough to stop Tenpai, but anyways, I couldn't go into Varudres that easily since I prioritized to basically have Rage, Desiree and Phantom of YUBEL on the field. And yeah, with that being in mind, I couldn't go easily into Varudres. So I used Necrokip Princess and Yama to go into Rage, and then I used Squirmer to bring back the Spirit of YUBEL. Then I used Shavara to pop the Rage, since I wanted to go into Desiree, and I needed him to be in my hand again for that. So I still did that, but I now had to use Yama to reborn the Rage, since with the field spell being at 1, Rage can be very devastating for Tenpai. Sometimes not, but if they have to play in the main phase 1, Rage alone basically wins you the game. So I add back Engraver, I activate Engraver, I do the normal stuff, you know? I pitch Lurry, I grabbed another Engraver since I had Lurry in hand already, I reborn Lurry, link 2 into sequence. It's the normal stuff, right? I fuse into Desiree, and I had to play a little bit weird. But I mean, hey, you have to do what you can, right? I use Spirit and YUBEL in the graveyard to fuse into Phantom of YUBEL. And then I just equip the sequence to the Desiree to have a baseline on the field that is very difficult for Tenpai if they don't have everything this time to break. But let's see what happens. So he draws, and he basically only used one Nibiru, so he has 5 cards to play into that board. And he used Pot of Prosperity, and I was like, no bro, that card is at 1, I don't want to see it ever again, Ash Blossom, but then he had Called By. And that basically told me that Prosperity is important for him. So I chained Desiree, which may be a mistake in hindsight, but if he has Droplet in hand, I can't negate it with Desiree anyways, since I only have 1 impermanence on my field. So if he don't put a monster to the field, he can just use Droplet anyways. So yeah, I was fine with using Desiree, but then he had Droplet, and oh boy, that kinda cooked me hard. He uses Prosperity to grab a lot of cards, and like a lot of Boardbreaker, Feather Duster, really good choice here. He destroys my back row, and then he uses Lightning Storm. Bro, I hate Tenpai so much. I just hate that deck, man. But then I luckily had Spirit of YUBEL on the field and Rage to grab back the Spirit. So I basically have 2 YUBELs now if he goes to the battle phase, which means under Prosperity he can't OTK me through 2 YUBELs without the field spell. He normal Chandra, and then he basically performed the normal Tenpai combo until he put out the Moonlight Dragon to bounce my YUBEL, but that was completely fine, since I of course have Spirit in my hand and I can just use that if he attacks again. And like I mentioned, yes, he could have outed my Spirit of YUBEL, but then after that he can't go for game, even with Trident Dragon without the field space. So I knew, okay, I'm fine here. Of course he goes into the Trident Dragon or Bident Dragon, I don't even know the name. And then he uses Holy Pydra to go into Ruddy Rose Dragon, and that was kinda insane, bro. I had Desiree in my graveyard, I had Sequence in my graveyard, and Nightmare Pain. So he shut those cards basically completely off by going into the Ruddy Rose Dragon. I really do like that play, if he knew he couldn't go for game anyways, to just basically cut my resources and then play from there. I really do like that, and yeah, he tried to attack into it, it didn't work obviously. I only asked myself the question why he didn't go into the seals. Maybe he banished it and he only played one? I'm not sure myself. But seals on top of that would have made the game a lot closer than it already is. And now I still had to play with basically nothing. I drew Squirmer, which was kinda good, and I used Engraver to grab the Sanct. And Sanct in that situation is kinda crazy. An extra body to combo with or to go into the Fiendsmith engine, it's very good. The problem is only that since he banished my Sequence and Desiree, I can't really do anything meaningful with Fiendsmith. I mean, of course, it puts bodies to the field, it builds pressure, it can remove bodies. That alone for me was worth it to have that in circulation, which was fine. And I do believe he also saw the danger, so he tried to do as much as he can to stop me from having any access on the field in form of Fiendsmith cards. But I still could do a lot. I mean, I have the Engraver still live in the graveyard, I have Sanct, but Here comes one mistake I make in that game. I mean, I could have done two routes. I could have done Chaos Angel and Muckraker reborn the Chaos Angel, or Varudress. And Varudress with only one attack would clear both bodies and have an Omni Negate with an additional destruction in his turn. So that sounds great, right? Let's see what happens. Main phase 2 happened. Let me explain. I basically cleared Ruddy Rose Dragon with Engraver, since it has a negation effect, which I do believe could have been annoying, I don't know, I just wanted to be sure. And then I proceeded to the battle phase only to realize, why game bug, I can't attack, and then... Let's read Sanct. Also, you cannot declare attacks for the rest of this turn except with feed monsters. This was one of the first games I played post Banlist, so instead of Caesar I had Varudress, so I had to get used to Sanct and Varudress. That could have cost me the game right here. So he draws for turn, but Varudress, even if I couldn't attack, is still kinda good, because even if that card is playable, if he activates it I can just chain Varudress, negate that card, and then on top of that destroy a monster on the field. So it isn't the worst card to have on the field, but still a very big mistake from my side. What does he do now? Sadly he plays Typhon. Even if that card is playable, he can't really take any use of that right now since he had to use Typhon. So at least there's that, but still a lot of damage right now and a lot of pressure on my side. I draw into Samsara, which of course is very good. I normal summoned Samsara and then I used Engraver to put it back to the field, and I knew he would bounce that since he is very afraid of the Fiendsmith engine, because it can just every turn over and over again clear a monster on the field, or on his side of the field, which is kinda great to have Engravers in rotation even without Sequence and Desiree. Then I used Samsara's effect to get Spirit to the field, and I just used the two Yubels in the graveyard to go into Phantom of Yubel, and I couldn't really do much more since my extra deck is really tight, as you see right now, and I don't have any lethal route, so I built up a good protection, a monster negate, in the hopes that I draw anything useful in the following turn. And luckily he doesn't really draw anything good. I don't even know why he summoned that. Maybe he thought it's a tuner, I don't even know. But anyways, he summoned that and I draw Beckoning Beast, which basically seals the deal completely. I normal summon Beckoning Beast, activate, and then he drawed me, which was kinda annoying, but at the same time it enables me to use the Phantom of Yubel. To then go into the OG Yubel, which he of course has to bounce, since otherwise I can just go into Varudress, which would definitely win me the game right here. But since I have Beckoning Beast and Spirit Gates in my hand, it's like, it's a lost cause, like he can't do anything. I just won the top deck duel completely. So yeah, I basically just built a board with a lot of monsters on the field, a lot of damage, and I attacked with Varudress into the Moonlight Dragon, and then I used the damage step effect to destroy the Fadra, because you have to keep in mind the Fadra can't be destroyed by battle. So it's basically just a safe, it's completely safe, I can't do anything wrong if I just don't attack 3 times, which I didn't, and he scooped. I just love the deck, man. It's very strong, very consistent, it can go second very well, especially if you play Boardbreaker, which in my opinion is even better than handtraps in that deck. And with Rage of the Abyss, we just have to wait and see. I'm sure we will figure something out. Until then, see ya.